that they want you to represent them here in the Attorney General's office. How'd that feel?
It is humbling. I mean, it's an incredibly humbling experience to have people in parts of the state that I still haven't been to yet, that I haven't met personally, that are willing to go to the ballot box and draw a ballot and cast it for me. And I'll never forget it. And as a true son, as someone who, this is home for me, and I care about the state. I'm invested in this state. This is where I'm raising my family, my kids, and I want them to enjoy the same freedom, safety, and prosperity here that I got to grow up with in Missouri. It's humbling. It's cool. It's something I'll never forget.
No, yeah, absolutely. What I got from you when I first met you, you came to UCM to speak to the Pre-Law Society, and we were sitting up in the room you were speaking in, and I was sitting next to UCM's government relations person, David Pierce, and what I learned from seeing you talk is that you just have this absolute command of a room, but also you are just super knowledgeable on like almost every law topic that came up. And so that stuff just kind of sticks with you, but like it's also an experience that like sticks with you when you keep going. So like when I first met Kehoe, that's something like that, just the first time you meet people like you and Kehoe, at least for me, those are experiences with political figures that really stick with you. You're like, these people are going places. And that's a kind of the experience I got with watching you speak.
I really appreciate it. And it was a great opportunity. I mean, what a beautiful campus, great community there. Had a good time there. Was that 2 years ago? I'm trying to remember now.
I think so, yeah. We're joined actually by Mo the Mule.
I was going to comment. Yeah, and it was a great experience. I vividly remember the interaction and, the engaged student body. There are times as a Republican, you go on a college campus, you're a little concerned that maybe there's some folks that aren't aligned politically.
Yeah.
But by and large, what I've found is that even when you get kind of that crowd that isn't completely aligned with you on the issues, they are interested in the work you do. And they want at least the opportunity to engage in a dialogue. And certainly at UCM, just had a great experience with you and some of your colleagues there in the student body and just really enjoyed that.
No, yeah, absolutely. Well, let's get into some of the work you're doing. You've been extremely busy after the primary and after your election. You've been extremely busy with your work. So let's, kind of talk to me. First off, talk to me. So you were originally the deputy counsel or the general counsel over at Corrections, and then you joined Governor Parsons' office as deputy counsel and then became general counsel. And now Governor Parsons is out of office, and now Mike Kehoe is here. And you obviously worked with Mike Kehoe a little bit with him being lieutenant governor, but what is it like working with him now that it's a new governor and you kind of in your position as an attorney general?
Well, I think first of all, the state of Missouri really owes Governor Mike Parson a debt of gratitude for his the sacrifices he made and kind of the crisis points in state history that he was that he presided over as the head of the executive branch of government, and the fantastic job he did and really setting the condition for so many of us to be successful. And so credit to him for the great work. And Governor Kehoe is someone that I personally just really admire and look up to. That's a person that has relationships across the state of Missouri in the law enforcement community, the firefighters, in the private sector, in business, in agriculture. This is someone with deep ties to this state, and it's not unique to one region. I mean, if you go to southeast Missouri, you've got folks that are loyal Mike Kehoe fans. The same in northwest Missouri, and so his personal relationships run deep. And you talk about your interaction, and everybody that interacts with the governor, Mike Kehoe, with current Governor Mike Kehoe, feels that. They feel like he's giving them that personal attention, that personal time, and cares about their issues and the things that are important to them and their history and their story. And so that means a lot to folks as I witness that. I have a great relationship with our governor. We are the law firm for his state agencies, and we want to be there to support them in that role. And we just great connective tissue between the AG's office and the governor's office, completely aligned on issues and making sure that we're putting lead on the target for our client base in his administration.
Yeah, no, it was great seeing. It's always fun seeing like the picture right after the election with all the new swear-in. So you and the Secretary of State Denny Hoskins and Vivek Malik and Governor Kehoe and Lieutenant Governor Wassinger. It was so great because it's kind of like a boy band. It's the Missouri boy band that's going on. But you guys don't, like, as an executive office, do you guys really see each other super often, or?
Because unlike
besides like the state of the state. And
right. So there's kind of the ceremonial times that we're all in the same place, but we are our own constitutionally created offices and office holders. And so it's different than at the federal level where the Attorney General is just a member of the cabinet, of the president's cabinet. And so it's different in the state of Missouri. Now, I will tell you that the leadership team that is in the executive branch today is united.
Yeah.
And we are all working together. We all enjoy each other's company. We all enjoy each other's perspectives. And so there's a unity there that I think will benefit the people of the state of Missouri, and especially under Governor Kehoe's leadership. He is committed to us, having regular interactions, having regular meetings, and he and his staff have just done a fantastic, outstanding job of keeping us informed.
Yeah.
What's going on? What's going to be in the state of the state? Where can we help?
They did a fantastic job with the rollout there at the beginning of his term. They did really good.
It helps us amplify the message.
Yep.
And so I think that's outstanding leadership on behalf of our governor. And again, I think my colleagues and I in the executive branch are excited to be here and to work together.
No, yeah. Well, here we'll get into some. You got some pretty big cases going on right now, so we'll talk about the newest one, right? Which so far, from what I've heard, has glowing reviews from Scott Faughn. It's a case that he can 100% get behind. So talk to me a little bit about the Starbucks case. I saw it was some discriminative practices going on. Explain that to us.
Yeah, look, the company has bragged in some of their publications about using racial gerrymandered hiring quotas.
Yeah.
So you have to be of a certain race to receive employment opportunities. And then they tether their executives' bonuses to their ability to achieve those quotas. Well, rich corporate executives in Seattle are getting rich gerrymandering the workforce here in Missouri. That's not right. It violates the Missouri Human Rights Act. And I think it's section 213.126 is the statute that our elected representatives in the General Assembly enacted that gives the Attorney General enforcement authority to eliminate discriminatory practices in the workplace. And that's the statute we've used, and we filed suit, and we intend to put a stop to it. That's a trend nationally. You've seen President Trump sign an executive order to end DEI programs, and that's something we've pursued here at the state level. And this is just one more line of effort to again, end racial quotas in the workplace. People should have opportunities to achieve based on merit, and it should be open to all races, all ethnicities.
Yeah.
This is about ending racism.
Kelton, I've never walked into a Starbucks and seen a white guy. It's never happened. I mean, I've walked into a Starbucks maybe twice in my whole life, but I have never seen a white guy work at a Starbucks.
I've walked into one before, and I may have been the only white guy in there.
Well, I think, but what's important is not the skin color of the people that are working there, but that everybody have the opportunity.
Oh no, absolutely.
And if they have these quotas, people are being denied opportunities, and that's inappropriate and illegal as applied to any race or ethnic group. And so again, the state of Missouri took a strong stand on this. Our elected representatives did when they enacted the Missouri Human Rights Act, and when they gave the AG broad enforcement authority thereunder. Oh
yeah, absolutely. If it's the case that they're just bragging about it openly, it's kind of like the don't pay attention. I'm gonna state openly what we're doing illegally, and then also don't be mad when you come after, or we can't, we'll be mad at you when you come after us for doing the things that we stated we're doing legally. So
when you do business in the state of Missouri, you submit yourself to the laws of the state of Missouri.
Yeah.
And one of those prevents discrimination in the workplace.
Well, another one I saw today, actually, that you guys have been clearing out those sunshine backlogs that you got right now.
Yeah.
Explain that process a little bit.
Yeah.
How does the Attorney General office, how do they work through those sunshine requests? And then, what's the process for that?
Yeah, no, it's important to me that we be transparent in government. The people of the state of Missouri deserve to know what we're doing in these jobs because we serve them. The people of the state of Missouri are our clients at the end of the day. And so, at the Chapter 610, there's the Sunshine Law, and if you want to receive records from the government, you submit a response to that governmental entity's custodian of records, who is the repository for all that. The records, has access to all the records of that office, that public governmental body. And then that custodian of records either has to turn those requested records, any records responsive to that request, turn those over within 3 business days, or provide written notice as to when the records might be made available. And when you've got people like now Senator Josh Hawley and Senator Eric Schmidt, who were high-profile individuals that did such a fantastic job that there was a lot of attention on the office, there was a lot of requests for information, and so that had built up. And then when I took over, certainly there were several pending requests, and we had to bring in new staff and train that staff on a process where we review the requests, we collect all the responsive records. We then have to review those records. We get to review those records to make sure that we're in legal compliance. Because what I can't do legally or morally is, for instance, breach attorney-client privilege.
Yeah.
And I run a law firm. And so most of the things people are requesting are going to be in a legal file somewhere. And we have to ensure that we're not breaching that attorney-client privilege and breaking the law as we're turning over records responsive to the sunshine request. So it takes time, but we dedicated extra staff. We trained those staff. We streamlined the process. We went from 1,400 pending requests at the time I took over, steadily working through that backlog to now, we're down to like 75 requests. I think 40 of those requests are from 2024, and about 35 of them are from 2025. So within the last 45 days, we've gotten about 35 requests. So I think those numbers, that trend line, can show you the amount of work we're doing and the volume we've processed and how dedicated we are to making sure we're transparent in our operations and getting the people the records they've requested.
Yeah. So do you, when you do that, do you usually have to also deal with requests for other departments, or do the departments themselves have processes to deal with that?
So the departments, every public governmental body, whether it be at the state, county, or municipal level, has its own custodian of records that processes incoming requests and sends out the information. The Attorney General's office is uniquely positioned for a couple reasons. Number one, we get our own requests that we respond to. Secondly, we train public governmental bodies from the, again, municipal, county, state level on best practices, and we publish a guidebook that has case law updates as the courts interpret the Sunshine Law and our obligations thereunder. But then we also have an enforcement mechanism where if people want to complain about non-compliance, public governmental bodies non-compliance with the Sunshine Law, we have a complaint form at ago.mo.gov that it's a drop-down menu that people can fill out. We investigate that and try to get the public governmental body into compliance. But then we also represent the state agencies who are our clients. And so, we have a great relationship across those lines and try to make sure that we're exporting best practices to other public governmental bodies.
No, yeah. I mean, from what I've seen, from the article I read today, it seemed like you guys had been like really just hauling it in terms of clearing out those sunshine requests. And I feel like is that one of the more tedious things to do in the office?
It is. It's tedious, and it's something that it's important, though. And I always stress to my staff and emphasize with my staff as we're going through our own internal training and as we're educating others that, that this is for the people. And that as frustrating and as tedious and as ministerial or clerical as it may seem at times, this matters to whoever requested this information. Let's make sure we're putting lead on the target for them.
No, yeah. And another case I've been really interested in is your guys' China lawsuit right now. So kind of explain, for nobody who really has been up to date on it. Tell us exactly what's going on there.
Well, my predecessor, Senator Eric Schmidt, when he was Attorney General, filed the lawsuit in 2021, I believe, against China to try to recuperate and redress grievances and recuperate compensation for Missourians who were harmed by the COVID pandemic that was unleashed on the world by the communist government in China. And initially, the court dismissed the case. Well, once I took over, we appealed and went all the way up to the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals, who reinstated the case. We went back down to the trial court, and the claim is raised under the Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act. It's not some crackpot legal theory that Eric Schmidt and Andrew Bailey came up with. It's actually authorized by Congress. In 1976, President Gerald Ford at the time signed the Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act into law, and that's the basis of the claim. And it allows us to sue and serve a foreign entity who is then liable. It can be found liable to the state of Missouri, and that's what we've done. China has refused to participate in the process. They were served, they had notice and an opportunity to be heard, and that's how little they think of these United States Americans, specifically of the judicial process here in the state of Missouri, is that they can't even be bothered to show up to court. And so we've gone to court. We put on evidence that we were damaged by their releasing the COVID pandemic on the world. We were damaged by that, and that they produced and hoarded PPE that was essential to Missouri's response to the pandemic. So they created this demand for this product and then hoarded that product in violation of the law, thereby harming Missourians to the tune of $25 billion with a B dollars. So that's what the proposed judgment we've submitted to the court. And I expect that we will be awarded that judgment. Now, executing the judgment becomes somewhat more complex. But I would submit to you that the Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act provides a process for that, and we will identify and look to seize Chinese assets where necessary to fulfill that judgment.
Now, at that point, if you were to get that judgment, at that point, would you have to seek assistance from the federal government to help you get that money, or how would that work? Like,
Yeah.
obviously, does Missouri themselves go out there and try to get the money, or do they get assistance through the government?
You work
Federal?
through the federal judicial process, and again, the Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act creates a protocol a process to do that, and we will engage with that process. But you know, any willing partner that can help us identify and seize Chinese assets legally to fulfill and execute that judgment once we get it, that's who we'll partner with.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I mean, I personally, I think Missouri suing other countries is a fantastic idea, because I would like to see Missouri get its recognition on the world stage. But
Well, and Missourians are still demanding justice for COVID.
yeah, absolutely.
And this is one line of effort to seek to provide that. And you know, Missouri's leading the way. This is a show me state. Results matter, and Missouri's leading the way on that issue. I think we're the first state to successfully raise one of these claims against the Chinese Communist government as it relates to the pandemic.
Absolutely. Well, here, so you've also you've been talking a lot about training your staff and getting new staff, and I've been seeing that you've been in the budget hearings lately, asking for a couple additional funds to help out with that. Kind of explain to me, what are the requests you're making? You know, what do you want to do with the money allocated to you, and how do you think it would help average Missourians?
Yeah, look, we are trying to staff to an appropriate level to meet operational needs. And really what has happened is over the past 10 years, the volume and complexity of litigation has increased. So instead of, for instance, let me use the consumer protection angle. We are the consumer watchdog for the people of the state of Missouri. We protect Missouri consumers using the Missouri Merchandising Practices Act. And when there's a defrauded Missourian, they can submit a complaint again. We investigate it and take the wrongdoer to court and try to get damages to make the victim whole. Well, it used to be that there was a single entity, like a used car dealership that was known for selling lemons and ripping people off, or an asphalting company that said they would asphalt your driveway and get paid, never do the work.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, isolated incidences, single victims, maybe regional kind of pockets of this. Now what we're seeing are complex scams that are communicated over electronic means, and they are multi-jurisdictional, often multi-state. And so they the complexity of the investigation and the litigation is greater, and it requires more staff, more investigators, more paralegals, more attorneys.
I've seen a couple. So I've seen a couple where you'll get an email or like a text message saying your package is waiting for you, and you've never ordered anything, but it's like, click this to receive it or something like that. Is that kind of what you're talking about, or is that a little bit different?
No, that's one example of an online scam, and you know, we want to be able to protect Missourians from that. We need the staff to be able to do that. We have to, again, it's about evolving the office to meet the operational needs of the changing legal landscape.
Yeah.
That's one example. Let me give you another example. You know, we have traveled circuit by circuit in the state of Missouri. I have meeting with prosecutors, sheriffs, and police chiefs, just resetting the relationship between the Attorney General's office and the criminal justice system at the local level. And that's resulted in increased demands for my office to assist at trial court level prosecution. And, you know, we handle criminal prosecution, we handle civil commitment of sexually violent predators, and most of the cases that we're working on are homicides, they're child sex cases, they're sexual assaults, so they're the highest profile cases. And we provide those resources to some of the most rural jurisdictions in the state. We're in 28 counties last year alone, more than 100 indictments, and you know, we handle 100% of felony appeals. So we had at any given time, you know, 1,300 pending appeals at the Missouri Court of Appeals, Missouri Supreme Court, United States District Court, 8th Circuit Court of Appeals, all the way up to the United States Supreme Court. So we need to have the staff on the criminal justice side to be able to meet those needs as well. And, you know, the crime is an issue. Certainly that's an issue that Governor Mike Kehoe has put at the forefront of his administration. And so we need the resources to be able to support that effort.
Yeah. Well, I mean, from what I've seen from the requests you guys have made, you're asking for not only experienced people to help deal with those more complex cases, but experienced people to help train more people for your office down the line. I mean, that seems like a sort of a good idea, to have an office that not only when you bring in new people, you've got people there to show those new people how to do it. And, I mean, it helps those new law students that come out of places like Mizzou or St. Louis Law. You know, it helps them really get in there and know how, and have the experienced folks around them to show them what to do. I mean,
I think you're absolutely right. The other point that I've tried to make is that really what we're asking for, we pay for it ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, we saved the state north of $50 million over the last 5 months in civil defense. That's just in 7 complete defense verdicts we got. There were another 12 cases for which we never got to a jury because we got the cases dismissed. You know, we're on defense on those. But we got the case dismissed at a judgment on the pleadings or motion for summary judgment. So the savings are, you know, innumerable in those cases. First year in office, we brought in $32 million in settlements and judgments in our consumer protection division. Last year, north of $400 million. We found additional efficiencies, increased staffing in that, and so I can show you the return on investment where we're asking for a less than 1% of the money we've saved or brought in, reinvested in the organization to again, meet the operational needs.
No, yeah, and that definitely, I would assume that helps, especially with general revenues the way they are showing right now, especially with this last report. I mean, if you can save the money state, anything, and it's pretty helpful. I'd say so.
My sense of it is the General Assembly's supportive. They're supportive of me. They're supportive of my office. We have great relationships. And again, they see that return on investment and realize that this can be beneficial for the entire team and the people of the state moving forward.
Yeah. Well, let's move on. So, I mean, we've been talking about crime and stuff. So, obviously, Governor Kehoe made the statement that he wants to see a crime package come through the legislature to his desk. That would include the state control of St. Louis Police Department. And so one of the things, and Scott's been talking about this a lot lately too, and one of the things that really we're kind of curious on is what can the state do that the local authorities haven't done at this point to address crime? Because, I mean, Democrats will often point to Kansas City is still under state control, and they'll point to Kansas City having high crime. Now, it's lower than St. Louis, but it still has relatively high crime.
Yeah.
And so I guess the question is, what can the state actually do to address that? And so, I mean, as Attorney General, like, what do you think could be done to address that kind of problem?
Well, we've got to support our law enforcement officers, the brave men and women who put on a uniform every day and leave their home not knowing if they're coming back safely that night at the end of their shift. And so supporting them has got to be a number one priority. Increased investigation and prosecution has to be the remedy here. And, what I would tell you is that it amazes me we call it state control. Really, it's a board of police commissioners that have to be appointed from the jurisdiction. Like, if you serve on the Kansas City Board of Police Commissioners, you have to live in Kansas City.
Yeah.
It's still local control, but it takes the politics out of policing. And that's the best way we can support our law enforcement officers there on the eastern side of the state. The other thing from the Attorney General's office that I think is unique, two of my favorite clients are the Missouri State Highway Patrol and the Kansas City Police Department. And it's because we represent them when they're sued in their official capacity in a civil suit. And I want the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department to receive that same quality legal representation in civil defense so they can have consistent and predictable indemnification from accusations of wrongdoing. And I would love for them to be a client as well.
No, yeah, I mean, so I grew up in Independence, and so Kansas City I've been around my whole life. But, I mean, the difference I've seen, like, they'll point to Kansas City being high crime, but the difference I see it is that I'll be able to go to Kansas City, walk around downtown KC, in the evening, and I feel like I'm fine. But St. Louis, you can't say it the same. And so do you, if they were to bring St. Louis over into state crime, do you think they would be able to meaningfully bring down that crime rate? And if so, do you think there's some issues with the possible KC side that the reason the crime rate hasn't come down to the point that, Dems like to point to?
Well, going to the eastern side of the state first, I think that this is an important first step. And there's no single cure. It's going to take a holistic approach. But I think this is a great, important first step, and it's transformative change that shows real leadership on behalf of our governor, and I'm excited to be supportive of that. I think that once you take the politics out of policing, it's going to free up resources for the police to then use for better recruitment and retention. And I think that you've got a great police chief, Bob Tracy, out there who's doing a great job in St. Louis. His officers need the support of the state of Missouri, and we're excited to provide that. I'm hopeful that bill will get moving and will pass, and I know the governor will be excited to sign it. On the western side of the state, you've got a new prosecutor in Jackson County.
Yep.
And I think that brings a kind of a breath of fresh air. I think that when you look at our urban areas and you see what happened in St. Louis when the previous circuit attorney, Kim Gardner, was in office, she had a 96% non-prosecution rate.
It does help when your prosecutor prosecutes.
Yeah, like that's the whole, that's in the job title. So you would expect that they're fulfilling their legal and moral obligation to their constituency. But that you've seen in St. Louis and you've seen elsewhere in the country where Soros-backed prosecutors have abused what's called prosecutorial discretion. Prosecutorial discretion is about reviewing a police report to determine if there's sufficient evidence for a charge, what the charge should be, and ultimately what the disposition in the case should be. It is not authority to nullify law through non-enforcement.
Yeah.
And that's what Kim Gardner was doing. So we got to remain vigilant to make sure that our police are protected, that they have the support and backing that they need to do their jobs, that they feel empowered to do their jobs, and that the prosecutors are prosecuting the cases. And the good news is, in most places in the state of Missouri, that system functions well. We've got to do better to provide provide resources to meet those rising crime rates. And I think that you've seen a commitment on behalf of Governor Kehoe to do that.
Oh, yeah. Well, Attorney General, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. Kelton, in the next couple weeks, we're going to have an event for Judge Russell. Actually, Kelton just told me he's going to bring his wife down for this event. Kelton, where are you going to be putting your wife up at when you guys go back?
If we were staying in Jeff, it'd be at the Marriott.
It obviously would be Courtyard by Marriott. Shout out to United Fiber as well. Thank you for all the great internet you provide to the great Northwest of Missouri. But thank you, folks, for tuning in today. Also, make sure to tune in Sunday for a special Valentine's Day themed show featuring our guest host, Aaron Baker, who is going to be talking to former Senator Bill Eigel. So I think that's going to be a great one to watch. So make sure to tune in on Sunday to see that. Thank you again, Attorney General Andrew Bailey, for being here. And thank you, folks, for watching.